Hi, my name's Keith Cooper, and this is going to be one of a few videos I'm doing about things to help people get more into doing their photography. Now, I tend to look at this like many people do at the start of a new year, and there are lots of things you'll see suggested, and I'm not the only one who looks at this. You'll find articles and probably videos and stuff as well about getting inspiration about your photography for the coming year. It's perfectly valid to actually do this at any time of the year, but obviously now is the time people think about it, particularly hopefully within a few months the weather will start improving and various other things, so you feel like going out. Now, this particular bit, I'm just concentrating on something that's often said to people, and that is to slow down your photography, that you're taking not enough time. What they really mean is that you're not thinking about it enough, but that's usually hidden in a number of guises, and I'll come back to the thinking about it time, in particular in thinking about making prints. Did I take this particular one knowing it would make a great print? No, I didn't, but I had it at the back of my mind, and it does actually make a very good print. But let's go right back to the basics. There are all kinds of ways, people say slowing down. It's about making you think more about what you're doing in your photography. Now, that can either be a technical side, or it can be, and this is potentially more useful, thinking about what's in the photo, why you're taking it, why you're taking that particular one, why you're there even at a particular scene to take pictures or event or whatever. Now, I say event. Now, that's an easy one. If you're capturing photos an event, it's there, it's happening, you're taking photos. There's nothing particular about that. And there, taking pictures in a hurry may actually be advantageous, particularly if you're shooting pets and children and things like that, neither of which I tend to do very much. I've photographed buildings and things like this, so I don't need a rapid responsive camera. So a lot of the advances in photography are somewhat wasted on me for much of my photography. Where I do get the benefits is increased image quality and what I can do with the images. So go right back to the basics. How about taking up film? Now, here we've got as a Minolta X700 and lens on it, and here's one of my old OM2s. Apart from reminding me that I ought to put more stuff on eBay rather than having it sitting in cupboards, how would these slow me down? Well, film, in a way, great if you've never tried it before, but it diverts your effort. To get good taking photos with film takes quite a bit of effort. It's also not inexpensive these days. Back when I first started photography, black and white film was dirt cheap. You could develop your own film, you could do stuff like that, and really it was not an expensive hobby. Today, using film is not a cheap hobby. Certainly if you want to start printing, if you want to do stuff like that, it's really not. There is a delay in it, and some people say it's a delay in taking the photos and seeing what they're like. I've personally never believed that. I've always found it great to have rapid feedback when I've taken rubbish photos. It's nice to know I've taken a rubbish photo a few seconds after I've taken it for whatever reason, whether it's some technical ineptitude or something else. It's great to know that fairly quickly rather than a week or two later, or whenever you happen to see the negatives or the prints done for it. So think about film. Somebody recently said to me that they took up film and they found that all the faffing around that went with it to produce prints, this was digital scanning. They were spending even more time editing their images, cleaning them up and doing things than they were when they were using a digital workflow. So it is not the panacea that some would have you think it is. If you've never tried film, then by all means have a go. I've done that, been there, have no desire to go back for it. I'm a commercial photographer. I have not seen a good business model for a commercial photographer like myself who uses film. Not even using big stuff like this for, this is a 5x4 camera. Yeah, I'm sure I could set this up and I could go to, it's not going to get me more work. I'm not going to be able to charge for the amount of time it takes. It will be fascinating to use. I might be tempted at some point, but that's not going to happen in a hurry. So think carefully if you're attracted to doing film as to why you're attracted for it. I'm going to say it's not going to be for the slowing down reasons that are often given. How about just using a basic DSLR, non-mirrorless camera? Yeah, if you're used to using a very modern camera and you want to go back to using an old camera, even old lenses on it, but I'll come to that in a moment. But if you're using that, well, yes, it's a different approach. But in a way, you're just artificially making things a little difficult for yourself. You may find that you like how the photography with a DSLR works. No problem there. I happily use a Canon 5DS, 50 megapixel. I use that for all my commercial work, or nearly all my commercial work, and it's great. I don't find it causes any problems. If you want to slow down with something like that, well, and be selective, just put a gigabyte or 4 gigabyte card into your camera and go out and take photos and limit yourself to what you're going to take, what you can fit on that card. Very easy to add artificial constraints. And there it comes in that quite often these are artificial constraints you're imposing on yourself to make yourself do something differently. Now, you may have all kinds of ways which work for you. I wouldn't presume to think that what works for me would work necessarily for a lot of other people. It's just not necessarily so. But there are things that I do as part of my work, which means that I tend to have a relatively slow workflow and the things. I use manual focus. Now, that's partly because a lot of the lenses I use, shift lenses and the like, are manual focus. There is no autofocus. The downside of that means that if you ask me to shoot a sporting event, I'm going to have to read the manual again to find out setting the autofocus modes on my camera, which works best. I simply don't photograph fast moving objects. Same goes for if you're doing nature photography. Yeah, manual focus, yeah, that's great. Slow you down a bit, but the things you're taking photographs are not going to wait. So all those bits that some people complain about cameras making things easy for you, are actually a benefit for that. So, subject tracking. You're having to actually focus on an object rather than have the camera go, oh, look, there's a bird there. I'll focus on that for you just in case. Yeah, that's in a way making it easy. But the benefits of having that done for you are pretty obvious. You're still going to have to be in the right place, there for the right amount of time, there at the right time of day, there in the right weather, the season and everything like that. So really the camera doing stuff for you is not that much of a problem, I'm going to say, in work like that. Similarly, if I was a wedding photographer, I'm sure I would rapidly change many of my photographic techniques, how I actually use a camera and things. But I'm not a wedding photographer, nor have I the slightest desire to be so. Hats off to those who can do it. Not for me, thank you. So there we go. There's a few. What about, I said manual focus, what about manual exposure? Yeah. Now, setting manual exposures, so just turning off your auto metering. I do it anyway a lot because I'm using shift lenses and things like that, which often throw the metering systems of cameras, certainly for DSLR. So if you put a shift lens on a DSLR and you shift the lens, it will typically throw off the metering system. So you can't rely on that. You have to go back to actually understanding the light. So this particular picture here, I'd been out, this is in the harbour at Amble. I'm unloading a boat that just arrived with fish. So there's a print from it. For this, I decided what the exposure was and the aperture I've been walking around a bit. The light is changing, so I'm wary of the light changing here. But I've taken a few photos and I know that for whatever ISO, whatever aperture I've set, whatever I've set here, the light's not going to change. So if I take a photograph here and take one a couple of minutes later of a different angle of this, then I don't need to worry about metering because nothing's changed. Now, if I go somewhere different or I wait 10 minutes or so and the light has dropped in the sky, I may need to adjust that. But that comes from experience. So for something like this, I really did not need auto metering. I'm basing this on experience using the camera. This is taken with a 24mm shift lens, which happens to be one of the lenses, I consider a sort of normal walking around taking snaps type lens. And the clue here is the fact that there is, although it's wide, there is no convergence of anything. So these elements here, all the vertical elements in the picture are vertical. And quite a bit of shift because the horizon's well down in the picture, but that's just because of the techniques I use. Didn't matter what camera I was using on this. If I decided to just set the aperture, set the exposure, set the ISO and take it and think that any minor adjustments I might need, I can process in the raw files. Now, I have nothing wrong with that. It means I've just thought in advance about it. That's the key to it, thinking about it. One other bit about slowing down, the use of tripods. Now, as an architectural photographer, I invariably use a tripod because I have to line things up, and it just makes, certainly on a paying job. However, in some recent testing, Fuji GFX 100S I did with the new with Laowa 19mm lens and also with a Laowa 15mm shift lens, a lot of the pictures I took were handheld. That's because if I'm out just taking snaps and doing stuff and taking pictures, I really want the hassle of a tripod. Yes, it slows you down. It's also a pain to cart round. I've long regarded habitual use of tripods for landscape photography as a relic of the 19th century. It has not been needed for a while. It's often thought of, it makes you slow down and think about composition and things like that. Well, yes, if you've got a scene set up and you're just waiting for the light to change, then maybe, that's so. I'll use a tripod when I see a benefit of using one. I will not use one just because of something like that. Now, people disagree with that. That's fine for them. Use whatever way you like. But, just as a way of slowing down, no, it doesn't work for me. But the key to all of this comes about thinking about your photography. And that's, more than anything, what you need to do more of. Now, whether that comes from slowing down is, depends. A lot of my best pictures are when I've come across a situation and just thought, that works, and taken a picture. Sometimes I've thought about it. I've done other videos about aspects of this, but really all of this is about thinking. Now, I find that thinking potentially I might want to make a print of something gives me a slightly different mindset to how I approach the picture, certainly for landscape stuff. I mean, this picture was taken. Check your archives as well if you're getting into printing. This picture, which is on a canvas paper. No, this one is actually on canvas, was taken over a decade ago. Now that tells me two things. I took great photos back then, and it's been far too long since I visited the Pacific Northwest. But anyway, that's another matter. But nice sunset pictures. I was on a holiday. These are my holiday snaps. I rarely have people in all what you would normally consider holiday snaps. I just never had any interest in that. But all the time I'm taking pictures like this, I have at least a thought that they might make a good print. Now, knowing what I do about printing, that does make me think a little bit more about the composition, about the elements of the picture, how I'm putting it together. It's whatever works for you. Now, I'm going to try and cover quite a few more aspects of this about it, because this year's theme, as it were, is about doing more prints. One way of doing that is looking through your archives and doing it, but another way is actually thinking when you're taking pictures, what do I want to make a print of? That could be anything. It could be nature, could be flowers, could be macro, could be landscape, could be buildings, could be people. It's whatever you want to do. Of course, if you've no interest in prints, well, I've got plenty of technical stuff for that as well. If you just want to look at pictures on screen, post them online and things like that, it makes no real difference. It's the thinking bit which is key for it. Now, I hope that's of some help. I'll be doing more of stuff like this. Many of these videos are direct responses to people's questions on YouTube. So ask a question, and if I think the answer is long enough, then it gets added to my list of things to make a video about. So I've got quite a few more of these to do. That, and it looks like I've got some posting to do on eBay, and may pay for some new kit this year or something, particularly since people seem inordinately attracted to film gear these days. I say inordinately attracted because I've done it in the past, as I mentioned, so there you go. Anyway, please do subscribe to the channel. It is greatly appreciated. Always check the notes for the videos because I put links and other stuff there. And thanks for watching.